All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for taking an hour to be here with me. This presentation is really for those of you who haven't yet joined the Center for Executive Coaching and are thinking of jumping into an executive coach training program. We offer them monthly, although if you're on for more than a couple of months, I would ask why we haven't spoken or why you haven't joined our program yet, which is really the purpose of why I do these. I'm delighted to offer as much content as I can, and in exchange, if you have serious interest about joining our program, just reach out anytime to discuss fit. For those of you who are members of the Center for Executive Coaching, welcome. Just note that this hour will not be anywhere near as interactive as our usual classes are, and I hope that's okay. What we're going to cover are the 10 challenges that every coach, every executive coach should be prepared to handle, with advice about exactly how to do that. So first of all, quickly, I'm Andrew Neitlich. I'm the founder and director of the Center for Executive Coaching. We've been training coaches, and I've been coaching for about 20 years now. My practice has focused on a number of different types of businesses. Right now, my biggest niche seems to be people who are in executive roles moving up to that next level, whether it's the son of a father who runs a family business and he's been tapped to take over, a COO becoming chief executive officer, a chief executive officer or an interim president who wants to take the interim off their name. That seems to be my niche in mid-sized companies that are growing and dynamic. Got an MBA from Harvard Business School. I was a management consultant for a long time, and quickly realized that the most valuable part of consulting were those one-on-one meetings with clients. My clients recognized it too. They often said, I already know the answer. Where I need help is talking to someone objective, having a sounding board to make the really tough decisions I have to make, talking to someone without an agenda who's on my side. Center for Executive Coaching is accredited with the International Coaching Federation. At this point, after all this time, we've had about 2,500 graduates in 32 countries. What sets us apart is our approach. We're known for practical, results-driven, client-focused, proven coaching solutions and methods. When you join us, we're not going to waste your time with too much academics, too much theory. Everything we do is grounded in theory and proven practices, but we want to get to how do you have results for clients? How do you get clients for life? How do you have clients? How do you delight clients so they rave about you to others? So the people who join us are already successful professionals. Some of them have advanced education, actually a lot do, although that's not required. Almost everybody is successful in their domain, whether as a leader, a lead athlete, professional, lawyer, physicians we've had and have, psychologists, really people from all walks of life, existing consultants, coaches who want to deepen their practice, and so on. The way we really like to introduce ourselves is with the success of our members. In fact, I spoke with Tim just this morning, and you see his quote here. He was telling me, I think 30 executive leaders, and we spoke today about a potential engagement he has with a Fortune 30 organization, which is phenomenal. So he's doing great. Here's someone, second one is from Dave, who signed a $250,000 contract pretty much right out of the gate from our program. That's not how I typically go for a $25,000 engagement and tend to have clients for a long time. So I was really quite proud of him for that. Terry has signed a 3-year coaching engagement with a health system that looks to be in the 7 figures potentially. And you could see Miguel's comment there. So that's how we like to introduce ourselves. More than anything is the success of our participants, internal coaches as well. We train and send examples of results of their clients. So the reason I do these, if you don't mind a quick blatant advertisement, is so that you can get a sense of my style, of our approach, and decide whether you want to get certified with us. This is the time to do it. And the reason is, especially if you want an International Coaching Federation designation, they have made a number of accommodations that make it easier than ever before to get your ICF designation. And those are likely to expire at the end of this year. They did it because of the pandemic. So when you join our program, you can do more asynchronous learning, meaning you can listen to recordings at your pace versus having to track live training hours. You also need fewer paid coaching experience hours than in the past. And so if you're interested, we have a 3-day seminar coming up via Zoom. There's no travel. You can do it from your home, September 20th through the 22nd. 3 days, 9 to 5 the first day, 8 to 5 the second 2 days. And our seminars include everything we offer. It includes our full distance learning program, ongoing support. You can sign up immediately for the ICF program or add it later. And with us, you're a member. We don't call you a student. You're an ongoing member with access to our member area that has proven just-in-time tools and methods, and tons of them at that, has all of our content, hours and hours of videos. I'll give you a tour after the presentation. You can also just join our distance learning program anytime. It's open enrollment. Some people like to start at the beginning, even though we teach in mini modules that stand on their own. The cycle, we have 3 cycles of 3 classes weekly for a total of 9 one-hour webinars, live, interactive. The one that I teach is 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern time, and it's starting again August 24th. Some people like to start at the first one, even though our curriculum is more like a circle than a line. Okay, and you can see where to go, centerforexecutivecoaching.com. If you add /overview, you'll get a lengthy page that talks about what sets us apart, our curriculum, program comparisons, and so on. And just reach out if you'd like to have a strategy session and see if this is a good fit for you, okay? So with that, we'll use the chat, not the Q&A. Type in questions anytime. I'm going to take you through the 10 challenges that every executive coach should be prepared to handle. Before we start, though, most coaching engagements go well, especially when you're trained with the tools, methods, and approaches that we give you, especially when you have our support. But a mentor of mine compared professional services, whether coaching or consulting, to the picture you see on the screen. It's like you're up at bat in a baseball game, and instead of just throwing one pitch, the pitcher is throwing like 7 pitches at a time: a curveball, fastball, beanball, knuckleball, and you have to be ready. I mean, the fact is, as my mentor taught me, once you've sold an engagement, you're always selling the engagement. That's just the nature of the beast in professional services. Most go great, but every once in a while, you're going to face one of these curveballs coming at you. And with our program, we want to make sure you're completely prepared and ready to go. And even if you're not, by the way, you can always reach out to me for one-on-one support, or any of our faculty members, and that's ongoing. We don't charge additional for that, okay? So let's get to the 10 challenges that every coach should be ready to handle. We'll start with some high-level ones and then drill down to some that might be a little bit more specialized. First of all, what do you do when an organization or somebody in an organization says, why should I hire a coach? Why a coach at all? Anybody have any ideas? Feel free to type these into the chat. Think about, how would you handle this? You're talking to a client, you're all excited. You have your coach certification, you have tons of tools. And the first question you get is, well, why should I even hire a coach? So let me take you through at least my point of view on this. What I do is say, I'm not sure you should. I don't answer. I don't know. I don't know that you should hire a coach. Can you tell me why you reached out to me? Right? So I'm going to use coaching to coach the client through the buying process and find out if there's even a fit. So that's number one. Number two, I don't sell coaching. Now, that might seem odd, given that I run an executive coach training business and have my own executive coaching practice, but I've never been particularly successful pitching coaching as a thing that people should want. What I do, and what I suggest you do, is sell solutions to problems. You're selling solutions and benefits that matter to your market. You're not selling coaching as a feature or service, because it doesn't work. You see, if your sink is clogged up, when you have that problem, you know exactly who to call. It's a plumber. You call a plumber. But when a leader is stuck, a leader doesn't think that way. He or she doesn't immediately move to, I need a coach. So what we want to have you do is position yourself as an expert at solving big problems. Okay. And so then from there, the potential client is going to tell me why they reached out to me, what their problem is. And so I can coach them to see if they have a big enough problem to hire me. I can dive into the cost of their challenge or of not realizing their opportunity. I can dive into the value they're going to receive by by solving their issue. We can really drill down with some good coaching questions. And I'm looking at both tangible issues and intangible issues. And for me, there's either a big enough problem or opportunity, or there isn't. I'm not trying to sell. right? I'm just trying to figure out whether or not they have a big enough problem to hire someone like me. I'll sit down with a client and I'll say, listen, if we can't come up with a 5 to 10 times potential return on your time and money in hiring me, we shouldn't move forward. I'll do that right up front and work with the client and coach them to see if we could come up with that 5 to 10 times return. Again, it doesn't have to always be tangible, right? Sometimes they get their life back just in terms of time, seeing their family more time, not feeling as overwhelmed, not having as many hassles, not wasting their time on things that aren't strategic. Okay. So number one, why should I hire a coach? We're going to not answer that question. We're going to answer the question we hoped they had asked, which is, can I tell you more about my problem and why I reached out to you? Okay. That's number one. Really important. I get calls all the time. They're asking me, how do I make the case for coaching? And what I'm going to say is you don't. Figure out what their top strategic initiatives are, why they're not working, and involve yourself that way. Okay. Reach out, anytime you want, comment in the chat. Let me know if you think this addresses the challenge or not. Of course, then we're going to move to the second challenge. Why should I hire you? There's lots of coaches out there, which to me is really good news because I replace a lot of them, right? There's also tons of bad coaches out there. There are lots of programs that do not teach market-centered coaching, especially in the executive space. And so as long as you can answer this question, you're going to be successful, right? Because it's really about distinguishing yourself from the other coaches and experts out there. And so again, I come in agnostic. I say, look, I'm not sure you should. Can you tell me more about your challenge and goals? Typically, if I ask very good questions that connect with the client, they suddenly realize that I'm different than the typical coach. There's a lot of superficial coaches out there and a lot of people who pitch themselves instead of asking questions and letting the client talk. The fact is, very important people, that is, whether they really are important or they just perceive themselves to be, they like talking about themselves. If we're the ones doing all the talking, we're going to lose a customer. So I want to ask questions and get them talking about their challenges and their goals. At the same time, one of the things we're going to help you do when you join the Center for Executive Coaching is help you figure out what sets you apart, and in a way that matters to the people in your target market. You really have to answer, unlike other coaches or professionals in this space, here's what it is. It could be your years of experience, some sort of result or results you've gotten, your track record of achievement. We have to figure out what it is about you. One of the great things about the Center for Executive Coaching that makes me love our members is that they come to us already successful, right? I worry more for those people out there who really just can't answer this question. I think that being an executive and leadership coach is a privilege, and you should earn that privilege. And if you have, we can work with you to figure out what sets you apart. What doesn't work are things that you really have to show, and you can't just post as words on your website, like I have integrity, I'm intuitive, I'm a good listener. That is just not going to fly these days. That's going to make you sound generic. And it's not going to do anything. That's like an airline saying, what sets us apart is we land safely, right? It's kind of something we take for granted. In an airline, just as we take for granted that someone who's coaching us is going to be somebody of integrity who's a good listener. So the solution is you need to have an answer for this, but you can also use questioning, once again, active inquiry, good coaching questions to stand out from other coaches. All right. So we've handled why should I hire you why should I hire a coach at all? Why should I hire you? These are two challenges that once you crack them, your whole practice will open up beautifully. When I first started, for 6 months, I was a mess with these two answers. I couldn't handle them, didn't get any clients until I figured this out. Okay. And that actually led me to much easier business development, much more focused marketing. 3, how will we measure ROI or return on investment of coaching? This is such a big topic that you can actually pay a lot of money for programs that will show you how to calculate. They'll give you all sorts of spreadsheets to calculate ROI. I think that's ridiculous. I don't see the need for that at all. What I'm going to do with a client is say, great question. Let's work together on that. When we work together, we're going to track and measure results based on your goals, or the person I'm coaching's goals and the organization's goals. So you start, what to you would be a great outcome of our coaching that would make this more than worthwhile for you? In fact, 5 to 10 times worthwhile. Okay, so you see what's happening there? Once again, the theme is do not pitch. If you pitch to a client, you're actually reading their mind. We're not mind readers, right? Nobody really has that capability. And so you risk saying something that will alienate the client. It wasn't what they were thinking, and you killed the deal. So instead, coach the client through what ROI means to them. When you do, you want to avoid outcomes that are out of the client's control, like getting a promotion, right? You can't put in the proposal. First of all, most sponsors won't sign off on a proposal that says, I'm coaching Joe because he wants to get promoted, or in order for him to get promoted, because they can't guarantee that anyway. But what we can coach on are developing the skills and strong relationships that are likely to lead to success. At the same time, the intangible benefits of working with a coach are often priceless to the client, far beyond tangibles, right? Tangibles are things like increasing revenue, improving productivity, reducing turnover among the team, improving engagement scores. Intangibles are things like having more time and really just the relaxation, the relief that comes from having more time, having fewer headaches, feeling less stressed, feeling less overwhelmed, which, by the way, can all be measured on a scale of 1 to 10. So when I've worked with clients, I remember at least 2 that got their life back. Like, they weren't seeing their family. They weren't seeing a couple of new kids grow up. They were at airports all the time. And coaching helped them figure out how to be more productive. And it changed their life. Worked with another client who was sleeping maybe 3 hours a night, CEO of a $2 billion health system. And by working together, she was going to die. Her doctor said it. Her executive team was super worried about her. Her board was really worried. We essentially may have, by getting her to a more manageable schedule and doing the things needed to make that happen, her health got better. Again, that's what we would call an intangible benefit here. If you cannot come up with an outcome that's worth the client's investment in time and money, then don't move forward. Don't coach a client if you can't figure out the ROI with them together so that they're excited and they want to jump in and they have a big enough issue that makes coaching worthwhile, right? What is a coach? Traditionally, a coach is a form of transportation that gets someone from one place to another. So think about Uber or a taxi today. You're not going to call Uber if all you have to do is walk halfway down the block. You're going to call Uber when it's a long distance and walking doesn't make sense. The same is true with hiring a coach. Unless you can figure out a big enough issue, there's no reason to move forward, okay? Because the coaching will just be mushy. It'll be more like therapy. All right, so there you go. How do we measure ROI? So why should I hire a coach? Why should I hire you? How will we measure return on investment? How are we doing so far? Any questions, comments, thoughts? We doing okay? Anybody have any insights? Share them in the chat. If anybody has any questions about this or it doesn't make sense, let me know. Again, when you join the Center for Executive Coaching, this is the level I want you thinking about: the client, value, results, return on investment. You just don't hear this enough when you hear coaching being discussed at coaching association meetings and at other programs. Number 4, the client doesn't seem coachable. So coachability is interesting, right? Just to define it quickly, someone's coachable when they have a big enough problem to hire or work with a coach and they give permission, right? You can't coach someone without permission. Otherwise, that's just nagging or pushing. So what do we do when the client doesn't seem coachable? This challenge is interesting because it shows up in many different ways. It could show up at the beginning. It can show up in the middle. And so we really have to have a handle on this if we want to be successful. Okay, if I see it up front, I'm going to call it out. I'm going to say, honestly, you don't seem, as Delia says in the chat, you don't seem ready. You don't seem coachable. You seem defensive. And I'm going to avoid any engagement where the client is not coachable. That's all. I don't, coaching has a Achilles heel, or if coaching were a superhero, its kryptonite would be lack of coachability. You simply cannot cannot coach an individual who's not coachable. You can't coach a vampire to stop biting. Even internal coaches, they'll complain, I have to say yes. Anybody sent my way, I have to say yes. Well, sometimes it makes more sense to coach the client's manager than an uncoachable client. And in fact, same with me. Sometimes an organization will say, can you coach this person? They're really difficult. I'll say, well, what feedback have you given them? And the manager will say, well, nothing. I was hoping you would. I'm going to coach the manager. I don't want to let managers shift the burden of management to a coach. That's not our job. Okay. So related to this, Al is asking, can I unpack remedial versus developmental coaching? It's real simple. If a client contacts me and wants coaching before they fire somebody, or as a last resort, or as part of progressive discipline, I say that's not coaching. That's not what I'm not interested. Take that money, fire that person. You've already committed, you've already concluded you don't want them. You're just doing the legal things. Go hire a cheap coach for them and take the money you were going to invest with me, and let's work on some of your high potentials. Similarly, internal coaches need to think strategically. Do not allow coaching to have that stigma of last resort or progressive discipline. Put that somewhere else. And maintain your self-respect and dignity, and align yourself strategically as a coach who coaches high performers. Okay, so up front, right, there's a part that every coach training program teaches about contracting. When I contract with a client, I want to make sure they understand that every week or every month, whenever we meet, this is meant to be a really powerful meeting. I want it to be the best hour of their day, their week, their month. And I want the engagement to be one of the most amazing experiences they've had in their career. And to do that, I need them to have a mindset that's open to coaching. And we could talk about that. Now, during the engagement, coachability comes and goes like the tides. I mean, same with you, same with me, right? Successful people, smart people, sometimes we're just not coachable. And we have to figure out why, right? It's one of two things. It could be something going on with the client. It could be something going on with the coach. The best coaches start by pointing the finger at themselves. The worst coaches point the finger at the client and say, I have an uncoachable client, terrible client, I'm going to fire them. Just hang in there. Before you do that, some coaches, particularly ones from other training programs, right? There's other coach training programs that will give you this whole, you become an evangelist for a whole approach, often grounded in bad science, fluffy thinking, new age thoughts. And when that's pushed on a client, I don't blame the client for being uncoachable. Some coaches push their own ideas, their own agenda too hard. Some coaches think the way they did it is the way the client should do it, when the client has their own style and background. So before you accuse the client, just make sure it's not you. Listen, adjust. Okay. Avoid coach training programs that are attached to a specific philosophy that almost seems like a religion, with funny jargon and words that will turn off clients. But it could be the client, right? Busy leaders do get distracted. They have crises all the time. They have setbacks. And so if I notice someone seems distracted or not coachable, I'll just say, I notice, you seem distracted today. What's going on? Maybe we reschedule, but often the client wants that time to talk about whatever that setback is. And that's fine, because almost always it relates to the overall goal of the coaching anyway. Right? How can I help? Sometimes clients just need a safe place to vent, someone to listen, someone to be a safe soundboard. And again, often, we say the microcosm is the macrocosm. That is, what happens in a coaching session often reflects what's happening in the bigger picture and relates very nicely to the leader becoming better. Okay, so there's a lot of ways to handle lack of coachability, either upfront, where if I see that they're defensive, they're uncoachable, as a friend of mine says, a smart businessman, he says, if the courtship is bad, the marriage is going to be terrible, right? So if when we're talking upfront with somebody and it seems like the courtship is bad, they're not going to be coachable, don't get married. Get out of that marriage before, don't say I do. But during the coaching engagement, be ready, right? Busy, successful people will be uncoachable, and that's fine. Don't blame them, expect it, and be prepared to use coaching to understand what's going on. Okay, so that's client doesn't seem coachable. What if the focus changes? Another challenge that you should be prepared for is that the client or the sponsor might change the focus of the coaching midstream. This is very common. If you come from a consulting background, you'll know that often clients will tell us that the problem is one thing, and as we dive in on a consulting engagement, it turns out to be something very different. And so we change scope and focus on solutions based on the root cause that we've discovered. Well, the same thing happens in coaching. We have to be prepared for that. Again, we're up at bat and the pitcher is throwing numerous different pitches at us. We just have to be ready, right? So in other words, it's very common. We live in a VUCA world, right? Volatile, uncertain, chaotic, ambiguous. Change happens all the time. Your client might change responsibilities, might have new performance indicators. Heck, I worked with a client who reported to a massive corporate office at one of the big Fortune 50 companies. Every week, the corporate office would send down a whole new set of goals that he had, so that he and his team had to adjust. So it's perfectly fine to recontract. This is called recontracting. You have to be ready to do it, right? You could certainly challenge them, but you could say, so would you like to recontract? And there's good news here as well, because sometimes when the scope changes, this could be a great opportunity to add to the contract, right? Maybe a facilitated session with a team is in order. Maybe some assessments or additional assessments. Maybe you get to do some interviews and report back your findings. Maybe group coaching, all right? So instead of considering this a challenge, think of it as this is likely to happen in today's world, and I'm ready for it. Once again, I'm going to use coaching questions to say, well, what's going on? What would you like the focus to be? What are new commitments? What are new goals? Perfectly okay to do. So that's number 5. We're halfway there. I think we're doing pretty well on time. And again, we've covered why should I hire a coach? Why should I hire you? How will we measure return on investment? What if the client doesn't seem coachable? And what if the client or sponsor changes the focus? We're going to drill down here a little bit. VUCA, again, for Grace and anyone else who missed it, it's a really important term. It's thrown around a lot these days. It's just 4 letters that stand for adjectives describing this crazy world we live in now. The V is volatile, the U is uncertain, the C is chaotic, the A is ambiguous. And you could look that up on Google as well. All right, 6. What happens when your client encounters a challenge from outside, something out of their control? Happens a lot, right? Maybe they get a new manager with a different style. Or I recently worked with the president of an organization, the CEO retired, the new CEO, totally different focus, brought his own team in, led to a lot of challenges. You have a client that expected a promotion. In fact, even though it was said that, here in the coaching, this isn't about the promotion, it's about getting better. They still say, okay, I hear you. I know you can't talk about the promotion, but I'm sure if I do well in coaching, I'll get promoted. They don't, and they're disappointed. Maybe there's friendly fire. I've worked with, in highly political organizations, peers often fight with each other. I think, they're supposed to be colleagues and collaborate, and they're secretly undermining each other. I don't know if you've ever worked in an organization like that. It's not a lot of fun. I think we see it in politics all the time. Or maybe the market changes drastically. I mean, I've been coaching since the dot-com bust, the financial crisis of 2007, 2008, COVID. The market can change very, very quickly. And I would expect that it will again very soon. So we have to be ready for this. What do you do if there's a challenge from outside? And so here it is. As coaches, I think where we often go wrong is we get a little bit too attached to the client, their success, and their story, right? And we get depressed. We almost, we're in cahoots with them. We almost want to complain with them about how stupid the organization is. And the fact is, we want to stay committed to the client's goals and success, but we're still detached, right? And that's really an art in coaching. We're totally committed to them. We, in fact, are a stake in the ground for the client's success, and yet we're detached. And what I find is often, we're there. We're a safe space, right? Everything that happens in coaching, at least the coaching we teach, is meant to be confidential. Otherwise, trust can't be established, right? So I don't care if I don't care if Elon Musk calls me to ask me what I said in a coaching session, or what one of his direct reports said in a coaching session, I'm going to push back on somebody as powerful as Elon. And I say, I can't tell you, right? As we agreed, as the contract states, it's confidential. So as a result, clients can feel free to vent their frustration with me. I don't take notes. I just listen, and that's it. And then we can refocus the client on what's in their control, right? Sometimes they have to process what happened, but ultimately we refocus the client. What's in your control? Your attitude, your relationships, who you influence. Maybe there's a conversation or conversations you need to have. Getting advice, learning from others, making amends could be part of it. So it's tricky. I've worked with many clients. I had at least one client, he got passed over for a promotion that he thought he was going to get, didn't show up for coaching for a month. He had to work it out. He was so angry and frustrated, but he showed up. He vented a little bit. He said, I'm sorry I didn't show up. I'm ready to move forward. I was just really angry, but I realized I really like working here. And so I want to keep getting better and make sure I get promoted next time. Okay. And I guess that's not it. That's not in our control. What can we do? How can you find out why you didn't get promoted? How can we get people on your side and create advocacy? How can you create almost a contract with others about what it will take to get promoted, and so on? Okay. Number 7, kind of related, but this time the client does something stupid. The client makes a big mistake, right? Maybe this is timely. Maybe they make a comment or comments to people in the organization, and those people go to HR and accuse the client of harassment, of being inappropriate, or maybe creating a hostile workplace. Maybe the client has a dumb argument with someone more powerful with them. Like, one of the things we teach in this program is to coach our client through a high stakes conversation that's coming, to help them pre-plan. And one part of pre-planning is making sure they're ready to escape. That if the meeting goes sideways, they have a elegant and diplomatic way to say, let's reconvene. But clients who haven't received coaching will sometimes go into meetings and just stay too long, and those meetings go sideways. Perhaps you've been in one that you should have left, but you stayed. Maybe they start missing goals. I worked with a client for like 2 quarters. It was a publicly traded company. For 2 quarters, his organization, his unit in the company missed their goals pretty severely. He could explain why, but you can only do that so long before the board has no choice but to remove you, or the CEO has no choice but to remove you, even if it's more about the external market. So what do you do then? 3 things. First, often, again, we're too attached. It's too much about our ego. We're too concerned that this mistake reflects poorly on us. Like, why didn't I coach the client to not do this? But the fact is, we cannot control, the client is not a puppet on our strings. That's not a healthy relationship. We can't control what the client does outside of coaching. So again, we're committed, but we're detached. We're observing the behavior. We're not blaming ourselves. At the same time, do not let yourself be the scapegoat. Sometimes HR or the organization wants to blame somebody for what the client did, for the stupid thing the client did. I had at least one situation long ago where a client made an inappropriate comment to somebody. HR was involved and wanted to know, is this the kind of stuff you're discussing in the coaching? Could you have helped him or prevented this? I said, I'm sorry, this is in confidence. You can see the contract, right? You know what we're working on because you signed off on it. I can't say more than that. Okay. We can't control what the client does. We don't have authority. But what I can do, if appropriate, is work with the sponsor, if the sponsor is different than the client, and the client, to make sure that the client gets feedback and advice and changes whatever they need to change to be better, so that it doesn't happen again. It could be making amends. We also, in the Center for Executive Coaching, we teach a really good behavioral coaching process that creates new habits and behaviors. And as part of that, when necessary, we can also help change perceptions and shift to more effective perceptions. So this is where coaching can be really helpful. All right, so bottom line, if a client makes a big mistake, it's not our fault, but we can then work with the sponsor and client, if it makes sense, in order to help them make amends and get better. Okay. So that's number 7. Number 8, how do you communicate with a sponsor if you can't break confidence? There was a Wall Street Journal article a few months ago that talked about therapy in the workplace and coaching. And buried in one of the paragraphs there, it noted that coaches break confidentiality all the time, which is terrible. If you want to kill the coaching industry, just keep doing that. You'll also kill your own reputation because no one will want to work with you. I will not break confidence. So at the same time, though, if the organization is paying very good money for coaching, they correctly expect some sort of update. So how do we help them with that? So 1, keep your promises about confidentiality. When you join our program, we give you a template so that you can do reviews with the sponsor that get results, get the conversation moving to a new level, and yet don't break confidentiality. What I do is I write it with the client. I say, listen, as you know, we have to give an update to HR. Here's a template I have. Let's talk about what to put in it. That way the client is not surprised. By the way, I want the client to attend this meeting. We're all going to attend. I believe in open, transparent communication, or I don't want to coach in that organization. And so I'm not going to set the client up for failure, right? Because the fact is, in coaching, where do we see results? Not in the coaching session. We see results in the organization. The client should just be perceived differently. They should be having more impact. They should be performing better, and so should their teams. So that should be seen. It's not something that a coach writes a PowerPoint and says, can't you see how great the client is? They're ready to be CEO. That, of course not. So broadly, the agenda is, let's remind ourselves the goals of the engagement. Here's what we believe the results are so far, but I want to check this with you. And that's really what this meeting becomes. Once again, I'm going to coach the client and sponsor to say, how's the coaching? What are you noticing out there? How can the client get even better? What advice would you have? How should we adjust the coaching? What are next steps? And so on. So basically, I'm facilitating a meeting so that the manager and the sponsor, I want both present, give advice and feedback about what they've noticed. And more importantly, we're creating support for the client. I don't want my client, as you'll see in another challenge coming up, I don't want my client to be left in a vacuum where they feel like they're on an island, right? Some organizations will give you a client and they're not supporting the client. It's like you have to do all the support and advocacy, not their manager, not other colleagues. And it's really frustrating. I don't want to coach in those situations. All right, does this one make sense? So when you join us, we're going to give you an example of at least one report like this so that you know how to do this. And of course, you can reach out anytime because that's what the Center for Executive Coaching is about, right? You get a help desk anytime you need one. Number 9, as alluded to before, what do you do when your client has no advocacy except for you? It's really frustrating. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Like sometimes I'll get a call. I remember one organization, this poor client, wonderful individual, great leader. He was overseeing an organization that he built from about 50 people when he got it to about 1,000 people. But he was just perceived as a little bit of an odd duck in the organization. He was younger, and yet he had more responsibility than many people older than him. He had a different kind of personality than most people in the culture. His manager was on the verge of retiring. He was, I won't say how old, but it was much older than traditional retirement age. And he just was sort of an abdicator. He wasn't really there. HR didn't know this client very well. I got to know him very well, but nobody else really did. Some of his peers were resentful of him because he had a different, more brash style. He really had no advocacy. That's a very dangerous place for the coach to be, right? It's really hard to coach a client in a vacuum. So where I'm at now on this is I do not want to accept an engagement, right? I don't want to accept a coaching engagement unless I'm sure that I've spoke to the manager, the sponsor, any stakeholders, and I know that they're on board with the coaching. Again, coaching is meant to be an investment in somebody who's really important in an organization, somebody the organization wants to invest in, and that means they should invest their time and their advocacy as well. I want to be sure there's enough people on my client's side, because if that's not in place, you're set up to fail. You could be blamed for the failure, and you don't want this kind of engagement. So I don't know if you've noticed, but one of the themes in today's presentation is it's okay to say no. Up front, you want to really have them sell you much more than you're selling them. And be willing to walk away from engagements that give you a funny feeling or raise red flags, because once you're in them, you're going to be the lightning rod if they don't go well. And remember, most engagements go great. Like 90% of my engagements go really well. We're going to teach you how to coach so that things go well. That's easy. It's just, you got to be prepared for the 10% where challenges come up. Finally, one of my favorites, going around in circles. Why do you see two skeletons here? This is, to me, a good metaphor for many coach training programs and many coaches, right? If I say to my coach, where's the bathroom? There are a lot of coaches who believe all they can say is, I don't know, where do you think it is? And before you know it, the coach and client are going around and around in circles. So the challenge I have for some coaches is, let's say you're locked in a cave with your client and you can't come out until the client has their own insight. But the client keeps saying, I don't know, or I'm stuck. And you're the coach and you have to keep saying, if you weren't stuck, what would that look like? Or what if you did know? Well, my prediction is most coaches and clients would die. They would just be reduced to a skeleton and never get out of the cave. And that's not good. That's not good for the industry. It reflects badly on coaching. And frankly, it shows a mismatch between what some of the coaching associations promulgate as their standards and what clients actually expect. Okay, so you have to play the game when you apply for a designation for many coaching organizations, but you also have to know that your number one responsibility is to your client, getting results for your client without breaking any ethical code. And so here's some ideas. One, I'll call it out, right? Again, it's not my job to come up with some sort of brilliant question to move the client forward. I'll say, look, we seem to be going around in circles. How do we break this? What should I ask you? I want the client to tell me. Maybe they want ideas. And even before I give ideas, who does this well? Where can you go for advice? If you had to take one small step, what would it be? Right? Certainly there are some great coaching questions that can help a client move forward. We're going to show you those. But more importantly, you can introduce a resource or a framework to help the client generate ideas. This is one of the areas where the Center for Executive Coaching stands out, in my opinion, because we're going to give you 30 proven coaching toolkits and solutions that cover the biggest issues that leaders, business owners, mid-career professionals, up-and-coming talent, new managers have. And that'll give you new areas of inquiry. You're not giving them answers, but you're jogging ideas. You're opening up new discussions. You're broadening and deepening the conversation that way. And so it's really important to have these frameworks as an executive and leadership coach, so that you're not going to be one of these coaches who asks the same vapid 10 questions every single time and causes your clients to roll their eyes and hire people like us. Okay. So that's number 10. Let's look at these again. What questions do you have? And then I want to give you a tour of the Center for Executive Coaching member area so you can see what we're about. Okay. Again, I'm not going to answer questions from hands raised. Just put any questions you have in chat. But we covered, why should I hire a coach? Why should I hire you? How will we measure ROI? The client doesn't seem coachable. The client or sponsor changes the focus of the coaching. You get a challenge from outside the organization. I'm sorry, from outside the client. Something happens outside the client's control. The client makes a big mistake, unanticipated, throws a monkey wrench into everything. How you communicate to the sponsor and give an update without breaking confidence. Lack of organizational advocacy for the client, and going around in circles. Okay. So what I want to do now, if it's okay with you, is for those interested, is show you the member area, reminding you the reason I do this, right, is that now is really the time to get certified. 2021 is the time. If you're watching a recording, of course, we have new dates for our seminar by the time you're watching, but our current seminar is September 20th through the 22nd. It's 3 days. It includes our distance learning program. It includes our member area. Or if you can't make that date, we have other ones you can see. We have one in December. We have a live one in the West Coast in October around Halloween. But you can also join our distance learning program anytime. The reason you want to start now is because you could take advantage of some International Coaching Federation accommodations. Okay. Charlene asked a good question. Can you address, hold on, this is just before we get to the member area. What do you do if someone had a bad experience with a coach, and so they have some preconceived negative opinions on coaching? I just coach them through it. I've had that. I've had people say, geez, I had a coach, it was awful. It was like all new age stuff. It was like they were pushing an agenda. They were, telling me about a particular philosophy. It was just wrong. They were telling me what I should do based on them. And I said, I'm really sorry to hear about that. Tell me more. Tell me how you want this to go. Like, let's set this up. So I got away from defending coaching and just coach them on what they want. Okay. Tim says, once a member, always a member. Yes, once a member, always a member. We don't charge fees. This is not one of these franchises. You pay one price. We call you a member because I'm uncomfortable calling you a student. It makes it seems like we have a different relationship. I mean, we're all seasoned professionals here. Okay. All right, let me take you to the website. And while I'm doing that, some of you are asking, what's the difference between the 3-day and the distance? Our distance program is our core program. And if you go to this website, centerforexecutivecoaching.com/overview, you'll see a program comparison if you scroll down, and you'll get the answer. But our core program is distance learning without the seminar. It's $4,900, at least now. The price increases due, especially with inflation. And that gets you everything we have. And you can learn at your own pace through our recordings or through our 9 one-hour live webinars every week. The seminar is 3 days. For those who want to get it done, who want back-to-back coaching, it covers about 30 hours of our curriculum, of our 90-hour core curriculum. I mean, we have 125 hours of including self-study and mentor coaching. And essentially, we've extracted the things that we could practice as coaches and learn from. And then you still have the full distance learning behind you, but that's enough to get certified for the members who join us. Okay. So let's go to the member area. Are there any diversity, equity, and inclusion considerations in this training? We're a highly inclusive organization. The ICF just launched a whole new series of competencies related to that. We follow those competencies. We have some wonderful case studies on diversity, equity, inclusion as well in coaching. We're not specifically focused on that. If that's your primary interest, there are certainly programs. That's all they do. I don't know that they're full ACTPs, but we cover it through case studies that come up in coaching. Good question. Thanks. So here's your member area. Let me know if you do not see this on the screen. I just want to take you through it. Think of this as an orientation, as if you were just signing up. What you're going to do is you're going to go through this member area when you first join, and there's a welcome video right here that takes you through an overview of everything in the member area. So you're going to start with that, and we just want you to do a few things before you and I have an orientation call. Meanwhile, on this page, there's a whole section on how to get on our live webinars. It includes our full curriculum, dates, Zoom links. Again, we have 9 hours of webinars every week on 3 tracks of 3. You can choose which ones you go to. Each one stands on their own. We teach in mini modules, which is something a lot of other programs don't do because the people who join us are busy. And so you can join and know that it's okay if you didn't start at number 1 or you missed one. They're all recorded too, right? You see this next link, everything's recorded. We have a whole set of content that's foundational, right? This is basically our curriculum. It's all recorded, but we have a series of webinars that teach you the foundational coaching conversation from different angles, so that by the end of this series, you're going to know the foundational coaching conversation and how to do it well. From there, we move to the process of coaching. Other programs have a very, very boring approach to this that won't work with clients. We're going to teach you a market-facing approach to explaining to clients how you coach and how you get results. And again, we do this over about 4 hours, culminating in a illustrative coaching plan for both individuals and for groups. Okay. We take you through a survey course on the best third-party assessment tools in the market and how to use them. All right. Again, we're agnostic. You're going to get to take a best practice, highly validated assessment and see how that works, just so you know how to use an assessment. But we want to take you through everything. We have a series of coaching case studies, and then you move to coaching solutions. And this is something no other program has. Essentially, you get a library of just-in-time coaching solutions. You know, if your client says, I'm having trouble engaging my employees, let's go to that. There's a whole thing right there for you. Okay, so these are our classes. You can come on live when we have them, but you can go to them right away. You can even call me if you have an engagement about this and see what happens. Here we have a bonus one from a coach who does this for a living with a really wonderful case study of how he improved engagement in a big organization. Okay, so you could take a look at these. Let's see, I'll give you, behavioral coaching, communicating simply and powerfully, high stakes conversations, overwhelming time, on and on. I mean, it moves to organization, how to coach clients through strategic planning, leading change, succession planning, relationships, professional relationships, mergers, board development, high performance culture. There's a whole bundle for career coaching, and included in our program, you can get certified as a career coach as well as a business coach. There's a whole bundle on that. And then we conclude with how to create your own coaching frameworks for those of you who want to write books and really be seen as an expert. Okay, let me just show you a few more things and then I'll take questions. Included in our program, you can become a master facilitator. We have a whole series of, a lot of our content converts nicely to training and facilitation solutions. So why we offer a certification in that at no extra charge. And then we have a ton of information about attracting clients. Whether you're an internal or external coach, you absolutely better know how to position yourself powerfully. So we have some micro learning, business development training. It's about, I think it's 17 5-minute animated videos, everything you need to know about starting a coaching practice. And then we go into more depth with our business development intensives. We give you about 90, I think it's over 100 pages of business development guides and sample marketing messages, sample selling questions. During COVID, we did a whole piece on how to create online programs and how to market more with an online focus. Because what we found now is coaching is moving to the point where you don't have to be local anymore. You can be a national or international expert, which is phenomenal. Okay, so you can also, you and I can work together on your marketing message, ways to get visible, and we often have webinars with members about business development. Okay, let's see. The only other thing is you can match with our other coaches by updating your profile, and that way you can get all the hours you need for the ICF or just to practice coaching. And I'll even review your coaching conversations if you record them and use the self-assessment we provide. Okay, I think that's pretty good as an overview at this point. What I'd like to do now, if I could, is I'll turn it off, record, and take any additional questions you have. 2 more testimonials. This individual said this is much, he had been through some other competitors, and he said this is much better than the materials curriculum I received from one, which was too not practical, and another that was incredibly basic, right? Watch out for those light programs. And I love this one just because the individual said he learned more here than from some of these other esteemed organizations. Okay, so if you're interested, here's what I want you to do. We've given you the tour. Just review our website, so you're informed. Pricing is there on the overview page. And then just reach out to me. My email's on the website. Again, this is the time to do it. We're filling up our September seminar. We have, I think, about 7 more spots left already, and that's in September. We sell out pretty quickly. Or join our distance learning anytime. Okay, so next steps, just reach out to me. I'd be delighted to speak with you. All right. And then from there, let me take questions. Let me remove this. Thank you for your time, everyone. Let me take this off recording. If you're listening to the recording, again, reach out anytime.